What's up guys, Matty here. In today's video, we're going to be checking out the new Master Bus Transformer from Rupert Neve Design. Now, as you probably guessed, the MBT is primarily made for your Master Bus, but there are a ton of different ways you can use this, and it sounds killer on drums, bass, vocals, and anything else you put through it, really. In today's video, we'll go over how the thing works. We'll run it through some drums and a mix so you guys can hear what it sounds like. Let's get into it. Okay, first let's go through the unit and then we can run some audio through it and see what this thing can do. Starting on the left, you have input section, which has up to 24 dB of gain, high pass filter in. If you look on the curve EQ, if we turn it on, it's a very soft slope and is great, maybe if you want to take a little low end out of the mix, but it could also be great if you're using it for vocals as well. The next section is the EQ section. It has a low frequency and a high frequency. It goes from 32 Hertz all the way up to 240 Hertz, the low frequency, and then from 3K to 24K in the high frequency, which is great. I like those super high frequencies so you can get a little bit of extra air on a mix. If you look at the curve EQ, I will boost it. Pretty big shelf, goes up to about 6 dB depending on where it is. So this is sweeping up and we're up at the 240. So you get a lot of bass out of that, or you can cut, and the cut is quite the same. Next, high frequency, if you check the EQ curve, you can see it here. That's up to 24 right there, and then all the way down to the 3K. Next is the color comp. Now, this is an opto compressor. It has threshold, and then you have a sidechain high pass filter, which is great to have if you have something that's, like a kick drum that's cutting too much air on your mix. If you want less kick, always great to have those. Compressor in, a release, high and low. So low is 2-to-1 ratio, high is 5-to-1 ratio. Your makeup gain, and what I think is the best part of this compressor is the blend knob. This is really great for using on parallel compression, which we'll check in the example shortly. Next is the width section, and this thing gets really wide. I was super surprised when I was using it on a mix yesterday. I had to have it all the way down to like 10, I guess you could say, just to have it like perfect for the mix. It can get extra wide. This is the actual amount of width that you're going to be adding. And then it has this great feature, which is the width high pass filter, which controls the corner frequency of the width processor with a range from 50 Hertz all the way up to 800. So you can not affect all the way up to 800 and then have the rest of the mix wider, which is a feature I like a lot. And the last section is what you're spending all the money on, is the Super Silk. So this is the first time Neve has given you the ability to use the blue silk, which is for low frequencies, and then the high red silk, which is for the more higher frequencies. And you can see in the curve EQ, if I bring the high silk all the way up, it actually changes the frequency. That's the pre-emphasis going into the saturation. And then you bring it down, and this is the blue, and that's the pre-emphasis going into that saturation. It also has this mix knob, so you can mix the harmonics in and out. And then lastly, this Zener driver, which is a soft clipper, and it works really well for drums. Now you have to push this unit to get that to really work, and we will push it. And that is one of the great features about this thing, is it has an input and output. So you can really push this thing, but then bring the output down so you can gain match and hear what you're really doing. All right, so now let's get into some examples. I have this drum loop. I'm just gonna play through it. We're gonna go through each section, and then what we'll do after we've played with the drums a bit, we're gonna go do a master and we'll use the whole thing and see how that sounds when it's all gelled together. So first, let's hit the EQ. Just so you guys know, I have the input set really hot on this thing. So it's getting close to distortion or pushing the box's limits, but it's only so we can really hear how all these different pieces work with the unit. So let's start off with EQ, and I'll just do some boosts and cuts so you can see and hear what it's doing. So really nice EQ, great for broad stroke stuff. As you could maybe notice at the end, I tried to dial everything back and just add a little bit in to something you might actually use on a drum, and it sounds nice. It just, it brings the thing alive. It's a good sounding EQ. All right, next let's move on to the color comp. We're gonna push this thing and so you guys can hear how it's actually reacting, and then we'll dial back the mix and see how it sounds to blend it in as a parallel compressor for the drums. So you can hear there's a lot you can do with that compressor. You can push it really hard and get some heavy compression by slamming it with the 5-to-1 and pulling the release back a little bit, really getting some pumpy compression. Or you can do super subtle with the 2-to-1 and just a light amount of gain reduction. So the color comp has the color comp to me has a wide variety of sounds you can get out of it. Hey, do you mind over there? Hey. Moot, stop, man. All right, next we're going to move the width section. You'll still hear how wide this thing can get just with the drums. We'll use it again on the mix, but let's check it out first with the drums. So you hear how big the cymbals get. They get so much louder and more in your face. I like when you turn it up to 800, your kick and snare bottom still stays in the middle, but you still have the width of the cymbals. Let's try dialing the width back a bit now with it at 800 and see how it sounds. So that seems like a more normal setting. But as you can see, and as I said earlier, all the way down to like 10 on the mix, it's still very audible, but sounds better than when it's just, cranked all the way. Now you could use it cranked for some cool effects, maybe a delay return or a synth that you want to sound super wide, and the mono compatibility stays perfect. So the width knob on this thing is well worth the money. Okay, so lastly, let's go through the money section, the Super Silk, and we'll just play with it so you guys can hear how it reacts. We will also bring in the Zener drive towards the end so you can hear it kind of just smooth out the edges of the kick and the snare. So tons of different characters you can get. I love that Zener drive, how it just kind of clips off the transients, but then you can dial it back so you get the transients back, but that thickness from the Zener. And then the blue and the red just sound awesome. I mean, sometimes I think the blue might be too much, but that's what's great now is you don't have to pick like the previous versions of Rupert Neve designed stuff. You had to either pick blue or red, but now you can add just a little bit of a blue and maybe a bit more red and then blend those together for the best of both worlds. So this is what I felt was the coolest part about this box is that you can now use both sections and blend it to taste. Okay, so lastly, I'm just going to pull up this mix from my buddy Trip Carter called Heavyweights and going to do my thing on the Master Bus Transformer and see how it sounds when we get done. Let's do it.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I put my, yes, sir, yes, sir. I put my weight all on you. Things get too hard for me, and I can't be strong for me. Tell me, come through, just to renew before I lose it. Goddamn, so when the shit gets rough and I can barely hold myself up, you're the antidote. Fix my mental for a little, getting physical. It's a heavy head I carry, no lie. So sometimes I put my weight all on you. By myself, I put my weight all on you, and you hold it for me. You know it's shorty. I put my weight on you. I'm still in my own way, it's true. Sometimes I feel I'm ready to go, no problem. Like I'm built different than you, and yeah, I still can always weather the storm. So when the shit gets rough and I can barely hold myself up, you're the antidote. Fix my mental for a little, getting physical. It's a heavy head I carry, no lie. So sometimes I put my weight all on you. I can't bear it by myself. I put my weight all on you, and you hold it for me. You know it's shorty. I put my weight all on you. I can't bear it by myself. I put my weight all on you, and you hold it for me. You know it's shorty. I put my weight on you.
Okay, so there you have it. I tried to game match as best I could while I was doing it. But yeah, I mean, that was the same experience I had with some of the other songs I've run through. It just kind of opens things up in a nice way. It's not too overbearing. I mean, you can do that if you want and, you know, crank the EQs, but just like light settings throughout, little parallel compression, some nice drive. I love the red drive. It just sounds so good no matter what you put it on. And then putting the Zener drive, I was kind of going back and forth with that. I don't know if that'd be a final choice to have that on there or not. And the width, of course, the width sounds great. Just one more time, we'll play it with and without so you guys can hear it.
Just to renew before I lose it. Goddamn, so when the shit gets rough and I can barely hold myself up, you're the antidote. My mental for a little, getting physical. It's a heavy head I carry, no lie.
All right, guys, so that is the MBT. Let me know what you guys' thoughts on it are in the comments below. I'm going to still try it out for another week personally. I think I might keep it, though, and I might be selling my tube tech on Reverb because I can't afford it on its own. But it's a cool box, and I think I could use it in a lot more things than maybe I'm using my tube tech. So we'll see. If you need songs mixed and mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. You can also find my courses and presets there too. Talk to you soon.